All right, I want to talk about this misconception of the IMF or the ignorance of the IMF and the World Bank. All right, so what is the IMF and what is the World Bank? The World Bank and the IMF, in a nutshell, is nothing more than a way for the G7, which it consists of most of the Western European nations, and the United States. This is basically a money laundering operation as well as an extortion operation. Has been always. It helps it helps to push the wars, fund the other legal, quote unquote, legal centers of the corporate of the criminal corporate sector, which is they're all criminal in the West. So they're the ones that are doing also through the quote unquote legal channels to basically set the rules and in a fixed way, much like when you go to Las Vegas or any other gambling place, you got the house that's fixing. So basically, the IMF and the World Bank are could be almost looked like as fixers, and fixers not like the show Scandal. They're not fixers are not good people. They're outright criminals. Just as we've seen with Donald Trump's people, they're called who call themselves lawyers, but they're basically legalized strongmen without the actually going out in the streets to be the kneecappers. So that is what the IMF and the World Bank is. It's an organization for the non-existent fantasy that colonialism and colonial actions no longer exist, because it is definitely been alive and kicking. It's just now under the IMF and the World Bank. The fact that China and a few others have been giving the illusion of actually being a part of the organization, it's a complete fantasy, because they don't. They have no input. So what the IMF does in South America and Central America is a prime example. What the IMF and the World Bank does all over the world is a prime example. It's things that the West, particularly the G7 in the United States, constantly accuses China of doing, of fixing things, of rigging it in their favor. Well, the biggest fixers and riggers are the World Bank, are the IMF, and they, unlike China, have had decades upon decades upon decades to set this up and to make themselves look respectable and legitimate. But they're not. They are a criminal organization built up by Western Europe with the cooperation of the United States and the other Western world, and that is what they are in a nutshell. Just as the U.S. has been the purveyor of atrocities that the Western Europeans had prior to the invasion of the Americas, uh, and elsewhere in the world, the U.S. just all that did was shift the standard to the United States, and the United States has continued and ramped up and caused more death and devastation, as well as the complete war on the viability of the environment, the natural environment, globally. And if you think that there's a difference between what the Western Europeans, and the U.S. Does in the present, you're completely wrong, because they are handfasted together and they work. It just one does more dictating, and they glad hand each other. That's all it is. So, anyways, people have to stop being complacent. People have to start waking up to the fact that domestically in the West, the IMF and the World Bank are an engine of destruction. Just as Western criminal political system and the Western media are destructive institutions, which are the enemies of the people. Because even if you are the ignorant backers of the Western governments, with the term nationalist or white supremacist or alt right, whatever you want to call it, what's happening is a direct danger to you as well. And if you can't see that, if you can't see the very dynamic of basically what is termed robber barons, the old term robber barons, or the newer terms of organized crime or mafia, then you will reap the consequences. People like myself understand this. Understand that there is no greatest enemy. There is no greatest threat than the Western world. So I hope you'll wise up, and I hope you'll understand what's taking place. It has been taking place for as long as there has been a Western Europe, for as long as there has been a United States, and for as long as there has been a Western world. It is the number one driver, the number one cause of terrorism, the number one cause of death, destruction, and devastation, and the number one cause of moral, ethical collapse, and the biggest seeders of ignorance, bigotry, hypocrisy, you name it, the West does it. And they are the biggest Satans ever to have existed. There is no more evil infrastructure ever created than the Western world. And here's the thing: the Western world seeds that very chaos within its own domestic populations. It seeds division, it seeds all of it to keep us ignorant, distracted, fighting amongst ourselves, arguing amongst ourselves, while they go around in wholesale way of destroying everything because they are hedonists, because they are malicious demons and devils. And we collectively help bring our own destruction.